Hello and welcome to 11FS Spotlight. I'm Benjamin Ensor. In this show, we shine a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services industries to try and understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think the future of the industry will look like. Today's episode is going to be a slightly unusual one because on today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined by Nataly Veremeeva, Director of TechUkraine. Now, obviously, we're recording this during the middle of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and obviously that's not something that happens to a normal country's tech industry. So obviously the impact of that is profound on Ukraine as a whole, and of course its tech industry. So slightly unusual context. So firstly, how are you today, Nataly? And can you tell people who are watching this where you are right now?
Yes, hi everyone. Really happy and honored to be here. I am currently in Kiev, that's the capital of Ukraine, and over the past 1 month we were being heavily shelled. Hopefully now we have won this battle, and Russian troops left the city suburbs where they were fighting, and currently the focus shifted to the east and south of the country, but our northern regions are free of Russian troops, which is definitely good news. That's why I'm feeling a little bit relieved. Still, the fight is not finished yet, so I can't be fully relieved. But yes, a little bit already better to breathe. And yes, it's also nice to see that the country shown resilience, and we have the hope and trust and faith that we're going to get over this in a victorious mode.
I think all of Europe shares that wish, and indeed many people throughout the world. So on this show, we're going to talk about your career, the pre-invasion state of the tech landscape in Ukraine, and the sort of the future of tech in Ukraine. Obviously, it's a little bit difficult to predict precisely what's going to happen, but let's start with just a quick overview of what does TechUkraine. Can you give us an explanation of what TechUkraine is and what you do in normal circumstances?
Of course, with pleasure. So TechUkraine is an NGO, and our basic objective is to help develop the whole tech ecosystem in Ukraine. So what we do, actually, TechUkraine comes from the export strategy for IT sector that was ordered by the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade, supported by GZ Ukraine, and done in accordance with International Trade Center organization. That was a strategy, and that had a certain to-do list, what needs to be done to the whole ecosystem to make it really develop. So we took some ideas from there and started developing it. Our key initiative is the portal techukraine.org, where we share in English all the news, reports, and everything that is tech related, because we understood that we need to increase the transparency of Ukrainian tech market to the rest of the world, to explain that there are a lot of different opportunities and possibilities, and there are a lot of events in the sector. And also we do other things. So we identify what is the next bottleneck and launch the projects. For example, we launched we co-organized one of the first pavilions at tech events at London Tech Week. We did one of the projects of connecting startups to cities, startup in residence. We did internationalization readiness projects. We did research audit of all available data for our Ministry of Digital Transformation, and also connecting IT to local industries to develop the local market, because the main focus of our IT is exporting and working with international markets. And we also want to show that there is also some opportunities in the local market, because we of course also need to open it and digitalize also our internal economy as well.
Fantastic. Can you tell our listeners, and particularly, viewers, and particularly people who are perhaps earlier in their careers, what did you do before this, and why did you decide to get into this field, and what do you love about your job? Tell us a little bit about sort of who you are and how you got into this and what you love.
Well, Actually, I'm working in IT. I have been working in IT since 2005. So I already started like this, like some minor. I had some minor jobs, but I can say that started my career in IT already back then. So it was IT outsourcing. So I was working as an IT salesperson, then in some senior positions, but always either sales. And in 2014, I actually started building communities that became my passion. I built first a community of directors of IT companies back in Donetsk. I'm coming from that area. So in 2014, like this war came to that region. But what was inspiring for me personally is that the community that I have managed to build, there were around 35 directors, actually helped each other to relocate their employees and just to support each other also psychologically. So that actually became a huge inspiration. I myself moved to Lviv and did the community there, and so I always worked in IT, but first as sales, and then more and more getting involved into community building. And when I moved to Kiev, I got my MBA there, and I wrote a diploma paper also in clusters as the business level of communities. I became the director of Kiev IT cluster, and then later I was the national coordinator of this export strategy for IT sector, and out of which we actually got the NGO TechUkraine, and this is like I'm currently the director of TechUkraine, and we are also doing some kind of community work for tech sector, which I personally love and understand really much. And I really believe that the future of our country is strongly connected to the digital and also to tech and to the tech sector, because this is the middle class that is earning good, decent money with their brains, like with their smartness, and also is global thinkers, travel a lot. So I really, and actually, it is currently the third biggest export branch in Ukrainian economy. So that actually already became significant, and I believe that its significance will even grow over time, especially in the current times. But I will probably speak a little bit about that later, because you're probably going to ask how is the IT sector doing in the world.
Yes, that's exactly right. You perfectly anticipated my next question. I was going to ask you indeed about the importance of the technology sector to the Ukrainian economy, and how the sector was doing before the Russian invasion. Which parts of tech were growing in Ukraine, what Ukraine was doing really well at. And you've answered that a little bit, but any thoughts on what was going really well before the Russians invaded? What was going really well in tech in Ukraine? Which sectors were there? Particular technologies like, I don't know, artificial intelligence or cryptocurrency that Ukraine was specializing in?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, really, the positions of Ukrainian tech sector are really strong, and it is very promising sector for Ukrainian economy. If we just go back a little bit in time and just really very shortly, in 1951, one of the first computers in Europe was created in Kiev in Ukraine. That actually means that we have very solid background, and we already started being involved into computer science before it became a mainstream even. So we had research institutes, we had different schools, scientific background. So we were busy with this computer science and programming already when just it all started. And when we gained our independence in 1991, we opened, so to say, to the rest of the world, and our company started doing what is called IT outsourcing. So that also this part of the sector matured over time. So we are not just doing some man-hour work, though the models are really different. I know that most of the companies are moving more to the add value services, just to providing solutions, to providing some fixed price projects. But like really, this outsourcing industry grew, and the result of this was that companies and people learned business, Europe, like even international, I would say, ways of doing business, international ways of delivering, and like these global technologies, like picking up the global trends, which allowed us to really increase our competitiveness and really ensure the good quality of services. And currently, more than 100 companies from the Fortune 500 list are the clients of IT outsourcing companies of Ukraine, which actually means that it actually proves the level of the service that Ukrainian companies have provided. We are really known for the quality. Before we were saying that we're a cheap location. We're not so cheap location anymore at the moment. So we really have competitive salaries and also quite decent pricing. It's still lower than the European level, but it's higher than in China, for example, or in India. So this part of the sector really became mature and developed nice. But we had the next level. So the next level is the evolving of product companies and also startups that also became quite big, and currently they are even occupying significant share of Ukrainian tech sector. And out of these companies, we have already 4 unicorns, which already also proves that it's very successful. Out of them is Grammarly, which is quite well known all over the world. People are even getting surprised this is a Ukrainian company.
I didn't know Grammarly was Ukrainian. Silly me.
Yes. Yes. So what usually happens is that, of course, Ukrainian companies with Ukrainian roots are also being registered in other locations. So it is known as global company, but basically the R&D centers and also the people are sitting still in Ukraine. Even we have some cases of Ukrainian startups being bought by Google, by Snapchat, by BlaBlaCar and others. So actually also our innovation is also recognized by the global giants. We have launched recently the Ukrainian Startup Fund that gave seed and pre-seed financing to startups, and that actually also inspired and helped to evolve the next wave of startups. So currently we have quite numerous. We have the page on our Ministry of Digital Transformation, that is techecosystem.gov.ua, and there you can see the presentation we have prepared together with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also various stakeholders, including Unicity, the pitch deck, how to pitch Ukrainian tech. So you can find the key numbers over there. Like the number of companies and the number of how it all is going at the moment. If I just give you several numbers, so one is that in the sector currently there are around 250,000 tech professionals working at the moment, and before the war there were plans to have 450 tech specialists by 2025. So the main focus of our tech currently was to increase the number of professionals being involved in the industry, because the demand is really high. And we really have a lot of vacancies and a lot of companies that are really willing to work with Ukrainian businesses. And around 151 universities that are preparing tech specialists and 23,000 tech graduates annually. So this is basically quite big numbers. Of course, again, this is not so numerous as in India, but we're comparable to European numbers, and especially taking into account the big need in tech talent worldwide. So we were suggesting quite a significant number of such talents. What is also interesting, also before the war, we have opened the DSCT government initiative, that is the so-called virtual country. So the taxation, so we have actually just thought about the problem of Ukrainian companies being registered in other jurisdictions. So we decided to do something to make Ukrainian jurisdiction attractive to Ukrainian and also to foreign companies. So just before the war, a couple of weeks before the war, we have officially announced the creation of the Dia City, and that provides one of the most favorable tax conditions globally and also in Europe. I was moderating one of the panels, and we were comparing different models that was organized by the French Chamber of Commerce, and they said that these conditions that are suggested are really one of the best currently in the world. So, we joined this offer to attract capital, to attract intellectual property, and also to make the administrative processes for companies easier, because of course we're not in the European Union so yet. I know that there are some discussions at the moment. Yes, so I'm really keeping my fingers crossed as well, because we received this questionnaire about Ukraine becoming the president, I don't know how you say it in English, the company that is, the country that is.
Yeah. So Ukraine has been invited to join the European Union. So you've given us a really good summary there of all the great things that TechUkraine was doing to boost the tech industry in Ukraine before the invasion, before the war. But obviously, or presumably, most of that is now sort of on the back burner because you've now got some, presumably, far more pressing concerns, and obviously, there's a risk to the very lives of everyone in Ukraine. I'm going to ask you what's going to sound like an incredibly stupid question, but how difficult is it for companies to operate in Ukraine at the moment? Clearly, there are Russians invading. There are parts of Ukraine that are occupied. Millions of people have fled the country. Just how difficult is that making it for Ukrainian companies to operate? I don't know whether it's possible to sort of summarize how Ukrainian tech companies have responded. Just try and give us an idea of how difficult it is to people who are sitting mostly safely in other countries that are not being invaded.
Well, of course, the war situation is abnormal, so this is not comfortable in the first place. But there are two things to take into account. First, the war for us didn't start now. It started in 2014, and that actually this localized variant, but still companies started thinking about different risks. So they had their contingency plans in order. We also had this experience of Donetsk companies relocating to other areas. So we were kind of a little bit prepared for all sorts of scenarios. As far as I know, currently around all companies, most of the companies, especially the big ones, are just doing fine. The market didn't really fall down, so it's around 80-90% of the business and operations are being kept. So there is a lot of IT specialists relocated to other safer areas of Ukraine, because the east is currently, of course, is more risky than the west. So companies moved their personnel. Not that many moved abroad, around 15 or 16%. Around 49% moved from just closer to the west, and they organized their operations. So they are delivering at the moment. I was reading different interviews of different CEOs of the biggest companies, and also spoke to the associations that are dealing with companies. So the situation is stable. I wouldn't say that this is nice, of course, and it is not easy, especially psychologically. But tech sector shown resilience, and this is really good news, because, of course, other sectors, like especially retail and other parts of economy, are experiencing significant problems. Tech sector in this situation actually became one of the hopes for Ukrainian economy also to remain stable and to remain sustainable, and just to help the country get over this whole situation.
But I mean, for those of us outside Ukraine know that a lot of Ukrainian men and presumably some women too have joined the armed forces. So presumably there's a shortage of workers. And then, the Russian missile strikes have obviously devastated the infrastructure in many Ukrainian towns and cities. Um, and you're saying that the industry is sort of managing to continue despite, you know, people leaving to join the army and all the destruction.
Well, here, I would say there are also several things to take into account. Yes, there are some people being mobilized, also from tech industry. Around 1 to 2% of the workers. There were even cases when the key workers went, and then it actually resulted in some problems in the projects which they were doing. But I know that the association currently is working with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to make sure that the key personnel can be really booked, and we already have this legislation so that there are like several actually front lines. So one front line is the physical one and the military one, and the second is in the economy. So if there is some projects that are working and we need people there, so that we make sure that we keep on paying taxes to the economy. So I know that there is some work being done, making sure that we have stability here. And I also know that the Ukrainian armed forces currently. There was a long queue of those that wanted to fight because really Ukrainians are really motivated there. But mostly there go people that already had the experience of working in this our military operations in the east that actually were for 8 years. So there are already quite a big and significant group of military people with good experience of fight, and that actually also is a big benefit for Ukraine that we have such people. And IT professionals are like in the second queue, so to say, because they were not actively involved into the military operations, so they were not called the first ones to be mobilized, so to say. So I see that this situation is also manageable. I know that there are discussions that if there are some projects where there are some key persons, they can be, so to say, booked there, so that they keep on working in this critical areas. And as for the rest, of course, this is of course the choice of every person, how they see how they feel the calling. But what is also important here is that apart from the military fighting, we also have a very significant, and this is unprecedented because I think that didn't happen before, the cyber war and the information war that the Ukrainian tech industry is really heavily involved at the moment, and this is our really key focus of our fight, because military fight is one level, but it is also very important just to fight Russia economically, to fight the narratives of the Russian propaganda that they are like producing on the unprecedented level. They did it for 20 years, so they built this propaganda machine, and now over just 1 month we needed to break this propaganda machine with our own vision of what is going on, because they produce incredible big number of fakes, and we need somehow to just to break this through, to make our voice heard in the West, especially because for us it is really very important just to explain what is really going on, to ensure that we have the help, because of course Russia is a huge country and we do need help of our allies, of all people all over the world, just to help us overcome this, because we are fighting for the values, for freedom, for a Western type of civilization, so to say, basically. So and we really want this message to be delivered, and our tech professionals are the ones that are really helping this. I know that our Ministry of Digital Transformation gathered the IT army of 300,000 volunteers that they are doing cyber attacks on Russian resources, and also the internet army of 180,000 also people that are working with the content and delivering the messages. And we also have the PR group, which consists of some people from that we worked on previous year when we created this How to Pitch Ukrainian Tech like some kind of pitch deck. And now, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Digital Transformation, and the leading PR specialists from tech companies, we are also working with the international journalists, sharing the stories from Ukraine, like what is really going on. And we believe that we really are succeeding in breaking through this um, like Russian propaganda curtain, just to explain what is really going on, and why supporting Ukraine in the current situation is very important, not only for our country but globally. And tech industry is really the key element of this.
Yeah, I didn't know that Ukraine had an IT army and an internet army. I mean, we're used to thinking of armies of being, soldiers with guns.
Yes.
Um, I I suppose one of the surprises of this war for outsiders has been how seemingly ineffective Russian cyber warfare has been, but also perhaps just how big the Russian propaganda machine is, and how much, as you say, how much sort of fake news and propaganda Russia has been putting out, and also how many Russians seem to be completely deluded and completely unaware of what's actually happening. It's horrendous. So good luck. um,
We even tried to, sorry, just wanted to say, we even tried to deliver this message to Russians. The first 2 or 3 weeks of war, we really just were hoping that Russians will say, please, like, stop the war. And like they tried, but then we understood that a vast majority of Russians are just really plain brainwashed. And at this moment, like, maybe this is hard work to do in the future somehow, just to break these narratives, to show that what is created for them is just an illusion of reality. This is an alternative reality that they are living in. But at the moment, just we really tried, and I know that a lot of people just really tried just to knock to them. And yeah, at the moment, yeah, this is not working.
so
We're happy
let's
that
talk.
the Western world is hearing us, because this is, of course, a very different level of the dialogue.
But let's talk about the Western world, and I like to think that this is about all democracies, right? It's not just democracies in sort of North America and the rest of Europe. It's about democracies all over the world. This is an attack on, yes, it's an attack on Ukraine by Russia, but it's also an attack on democracy by an autocracy, a dictatorship. So all democracies are in this, and I get upset when people start saying it's about the West. It's not about the West. This is a threat to every democracy in the world. Um, it's not just about Western values. Anyway, what can the international community do to help Ukraine, and specifically in terms of tech Ukraine? So, should um, what should European tech companies? I mean, most of the audience listening to this are people in fintech. What should fintech companies be doing? Should they be looking to partner with companies in Ukraine? How can international companies work with Tech Ukraine to support you? What would you like them to be doing?
Well, probably two things, or just basically work with Ukrainian companies and do not work with Russian companies. We really, like, I don't have anything personal to Russian companies. I know that even there are some really good people over there. Just we need currently to make sure that their economy is not financing the war machine. And this is the only thing that we need just to do at the moment, and to make the system fail, so that maybe on this ruins there will be something new emerging. So, because I fully support and agree with you that this is just the fight for, I don't know, for the future, for more productive way of more of work in the future. Of course, like we call it, like I call it like Western values, but this is like the values of the modern world over the old world. The importance of freedom and free thinking and individual development over this crowd psychology and autocracies. Because if we're speaking about the digital world, where like basic processes will be automated, it is the creativity and the independent thinking of people that will be able to generate this new content, new approaches. So, and yes, this is just really the fight for the future. Apart from these two things, we work with Ukrainian companies and like at the moment, please do not work with Russian companies. Think that if you can support by donating to Ukrainian army, to donate to Ukrainian humanitarian projects, we do have the government's website, war.ukraine.ua. You can go there and you see all the links to different funds. This is the official government Ministry of Foreign Affairs website. So you can actually choose out of all the options how you can help. But yes, cooperating with us will be already a great help.
Most of our viewers are in the fintech industry or in financial services more widely. Obviously, there have been a number of sanctions imposed on Russia. As you say, there are companies that have been withdrawing from Russia and so on. Has Ukraine been affected by any of those sanctions in any way? I'm assuming not. I'm assuming most of the effect has just come from the invasion of your country. Is there anything that fintech companies in particular should be focusing on? So, do you see any opportunities for companies in sort of payments or insurance or banking to support Ukraine, to help Ukraine, or is it just stick to those same basics of avoid doing business with Russia for now and try and increase your business with Ukraine to support the Ukrainian economy?
I would say that the sanctions, I don't see any effects towards Ukraine. Even we have some beneficial things, because some of the IT companies that used to do to work with Russia currently are closing their projects, and they're searching for other executors of subcontractors or partners, and they are looking at Ukrainian companies. So we see also such cases that Ukrainian companies are considered to be as an alternative to the projects that used to be there. I also see good benefit in currently, like we were fighting for some time for this big international companies that had offices in Moscow, and we were like Facebook, like I don't know, some just Microsoft. So we were like in the circle of like they had these areas, and so we were reporting to that area. And currently, I hope that either the centers will be either in Ukraine, or we will be more like connected to the Western area, like some of the offices are located in Warsaw, for example. So hopefully we will cut the connections with Russia. Especially this is now natural, because all these companies are really leaving Russia at the moment. So there will be no question about that. Speaking about fintech companies being more involved, um, actually, I know that banking sector in Ukraine is currently stable. I really don't have any specific ideas about how to cooperate, but I know that we do have the Association of Fintech, and I actually can provide, maybe in the description of this video, there could be the link to this association, so you can address specifically the person, and maybe there could be some connections.
Yeah, let's do that, because you've given. I think we'll add, what we'll do is we'll add some links when we post the video on YouTube and elsewhere. We'll add a number of links, because you've talked about a number of things like the Ministry of Digital Transformation, obviously TechUkraine. So I think let's add a number of links where people can find more information and connect to the right resources when we load up the video. Okay.
And there is one more thing. Ministry of Digital Transformation is really actively involved into attracting new business into Ukraine, and I don't know how active they are at the moment with this particular task, but still our dear city is open, and I know that we're even registering currently the residents from there, and they were having direct negotiations with big companies. So it also could be an option to address Ministry of Digital Transformation directly, where TechUkraine can help making this connection. So in case you want to work and just to do this, to have the discussion on the ministry level, this is also very, very much welcome. And there are people, former IT specialists themselves, IT entrepreneurs that are really very much into the topic, that will be able to help.
Thank you. You may not have a good answer to this question, because you may not have been able to think about it at all. Have you had any time to think about how tech Ukraine or the tech industry in Ukraine might rebuild when peace hopefully comes, or are you really just taking it day by day and you haven't really had any time to think about rebuilding yet?
No, we are actually thinking about that. Of course, we need to have the picture of what we are fighting for, and of course, this is still vague. But well, what we do know is that tech industry in Ukraine will thrive. We will focus specifically, of course, on increasing the number of tech specialists. We also see how much interest Ukraine is currently getting, and hopefully that will also turn into business cooperation. So, because like on this level, it is very important to coincide by values and also by the outlook, by the way how you look at the future, and if that coincides, that actually creates quite a good ground for cooperation. And I see already now a lot of interest from different countries, from Sweden, for example, from France, from other locations, from UK. So more companies are willing to do business with Ukraine. So I think that we will experiencing some kind of boom after this. Also, an interesting phenomenon to take into account that a lot of Ukrainians fled. Well, mostly women, but women also quite actively involved into IT. So I don't know. Maybe some of them will stay, so there will be stronger connection in Europe with Ukraine, and they will help on the spot, maybe creating this communities of Ukrainian tech specialists, and that will also facilitate this bigger interconnection with the global market and with European market specifically. And I believe that. Well, hopefully there will be investment into rebuilding the areas, and currently we do have the infrastructure being bombed and cities being bombed, but there is also an interesting idea that still this old manufacturing is currently replaced with something new, and usually when you do this in the normal ways, it's painful, but now we have it's destroyed, so it will be easier to just to build on scratch. So I believe that those cities that are experiencing this at the moment will turn into some really new and very very much high tech locations, or at least like of course we need to win the war first in order to think about that. But just even taking into account like how this bombed cities from the Second World War, how they changed really much, and also exactly the fact that the old is removed, it's easier to do the next step. So I believe that something similar will happen, and there will be also a lot of construction works to create some tech areas, because we do have already a unit city in Kiev and also in Kharkiv. That's one of the biggest tech hub, tech technopark, and I believe that more of such spaces will be created. The government is really very interested in developing the tech sector. What we also the signals that we are receiving, that we are welcome in the European Union, and also that there will be funds for recovering and for rebuilding the economy, and if we use it wisely, that could help us also just shift into the digital economy, local economy, and also supporting our tech sector that is already quite well developed, so that we build something even more powerful after this challenge is being passed. I personally
Yes.
see also big opportunity in creating the cooperation of scientific base universities and entrepreneurs. We do have already two projects of similar focus being in place, and I think that this is going to be the future.
Thank you. I think everyone watching this will hope that your vision of sort of technology in Ukraine rising like a phoenix from the flames will prove true. So it's a wonderful vision, and I sincerely hope that peace is achieved, and that victory for Ukraine, because peace alone is not enough. We need to see an end of this threat to European peace. Um, Normally, when we close these shows, we ask people a question where we ask them to think about their younger selves, and we ask them to um, give some advice to their younger self, and they think back to when you were sort of just leaving school, leaving university, and if you look back on your life, what advice would you give back to your younger self? But I've never asked this question to somebody who's in the middle of a war. So I'm conscious that your answer to that question might be very different to the answer you'd have given me, say, 2 months ago. Um, but if you had any advice for your younger self, what would it be?
I would advise myself to search for answers within first and to listen to my own intuition, my own self, my own reasoning better than just relying to anybody else's opinion. And it is really a recent realization for me. And I think in the situation of the information war and the abundance of different variants of narratives and ways to interpret the reality, it is really very important to really feel what is true inside, because sometimes it's just hard to make a way out of the maze of all this interpretations and all this opinions and advice and everything. So rely on yourself. That's my advice.
That's very good advice. Our usual closing question is to ask people, what's next for them and their organizations. And of course, that's an almost impossible question for you to answer because you cannot know. Nobody can truly know what's going to happen next. We can all hope for the best. Perhaps instead, a different question: is there any sort of last thoughts you want to give to people watching this, thinking about tech in Ukraine and how they might help? Any final sort of requests or thoughts for the viewers?
Well, I do have plans for the future, though.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So my vision, what is really needed for Ukraine at the moment, is to create the positive image of what we are fighting for. So we are fighting, like we intuitively feel that this is for the freedom and for the ability to create our own story and our own way how we want to live this life as a country, how we want to organize this. But I think that we need to also launch some discussions about like what are the pillars on which we want to build, to rebuild, just to build new Ukraine. Because of course in the previous times we had our strengths and we also had some things that we were working on. And I believe that current situation really shook the Ukrainian society to the basics. And now like we really got united as a nation, and now we need to also to generate like what will emerge out of this, because it needs to be something really totally fresh, but also based on our roots and also on who we are, again, who we are. So because yes, Ukrainian phenomenon is a little bit we are ourselves surprised about the resilience that we have shown, and we really need to develop this further. So, Tech Ukraine and I personally also want to get involved into such discussions, and also maybe launch some projects to support the Ukrainian tech. Personally, I also think that what would be important for Ukraine is working on the psychological level with people traumatized by these experiences, because there are like huge amount of people currently that is just for myself. And also for 1 month I was working with my emotions and with my emotional state, and it is a challenge, big challenge, just to keep this, just to overcome fears, to overcome all these negative emotions, to overcome hate and pain, because this is naturally what you feel when you see all these pictures and when you actually hear the bombing for 1 month out of my window. So that's a very serious psychological challenge. So I would also maybe got involved into some projects that helps people to recover from this post-trauma war syndrome. But let's see how it all is going to unveil for us. Of course, what is important currently is to win this war, and then to just to have further things. But like when you are in the middle of the fight, you need to have a dream. You need to know what you're fighting for, and this is what we're currently thinking. And I know like a lot of people in the society are doing this. So because this is inspiring. And my last thoughts is that I really am very grateful to all the audience that is hearing us, and to all the global world, the amount of the support that Ukraine is currently receiving. This is really very important for us, and I think that without this support we wouldn't be so successful in what we're doing right now. I think that like we really feel that we're in this together. We really feel that this support. We really feel that we are fighting physically, but energetically, with the weapons, with the finances, with the emotions, with all this energy. We really feel this support, and this is really like this is very heartwarming for us, and we are really very helpful for this. And hopefully that after this, like after we are overcoming this precedent of old just trying to grasp the new, but the new fighting back and just really paving the way to the new way of organizing things. Such wars will go to the past, and no other country will challenge the world with this outdated way of thinking, that they will ever think that they will succeed in this. So I think that hopefully that this will create a precedent that nobody will dare to do this, and we will go to the new to the new civilization, to the new ways of doing things, and to the approach that freedom is the basis, and that actually creates this creativity, ability to think independently, to pave the way in this informational revolution that already happened. And we will create a better future for us, for our kids, and for the planet, because we still have plenty of things to think about as a humanity and as a community. And yes, current situations show that we can unite.
Nataly, thank you so much for talking to me today so eloquently about not only the tech industry in Ukraine, but your hopes for the future and your hopes to see a greater Ukraine rising from the ashes and rebuilding an even stronger society. It's been very moving listening to talk to you and knowing that you're sitting in Kiev, a city that has been under attack, with many of your countrymen and women, under attack even as we speak. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We're out of time. Where can people find out a little bit more about you and about the things that you're doing at TechUkraine? And as I said, we'll add some links to the end of the video. But where can people find out a little bit more about you?
Well, you can go to the website techukraine.org, and you have the contacts over there, so you can use the form just to write us, and we're responding actively to this. Another option is, of course, to go to LinkedIn and have a profile over there. That is also an option. And we're also at TechUkraine also welcoming all sort of support. So if you're willing to donate to what we're doing, we will be also grateful accepting this. And on the website, you will find all the information.
Wonderful. Well, that's all we have time for. So thank you so much, Nataly, for joining us. Long live Ukraine. Goodbye, and have a great week, everyone.